Hi, I'm Aaron Goodchild, and today we're going to run through how you how you start a brand new Yamaha F60. Now, what we say about an F60 will apply right across the four-stroke range. What's happened is people just don't know, and then what I've heard is some dealers have got her a little bit confused. I'll guarantee what I tell you in the next 5 minutes is exactly how to run in your brand new Yamaha four-stroke to maintain the perfect running longevity fuel economy, and so you don't have any problem. Just like everyone that buys a Yamaha don't have problems, and that's why Yamaha are famous.
Boats, boats, boats! Brisbane Yamaha knows boats.
The first thing we're going to look at is there's a little nick under here. Now, feel that, Scott. That little nick there is actually the pickup for your speedo. What it is it's a plastic pipe that runs all the way to the gauge, and it works on water pressure. If you find that your speedo doesn't work, well, stick a little bit of fishing trace. We can use compressed air, and that will clear it. That's all it is. Now, of course, you've got a GPS chart plotter. That will always be real speed. This works on water pressure, as says, and it's actually the boat. Current will say that it's working. As you're drifting, will say a GPS is always 100%. Now, under here, there, Scott, what that is, and if you can see that, that is the trim sensor. Now, the trim sensor, as you're driving a boat, is very important because boats vary on how they perform depending on how far the motor is. As we know, as the motor comes into the boat, the front of the boat, the bow of the boat will come down. Now, when you take off, you trim the boat right in. It's powerful, you take off, and then as you're going, as you trim the boat out, a different part of the hull will actually be in the water. The less hull, the faster you go, but as you trim it out, eventually it'll break water and the boat will become skittish. So, what happens with a trim? You'll find that your boat just works better at a certain trim level. Yamaha gauges, and you've got 2 land gauges on you, the top of the range Yamaha on your boat, which also tell you whether it's got water, whether it's overheating, whether it's got oil. They'll tell you how much fuel it's using. Top of the range. Yamaha gauges are the best you can get. And on one of them, it shows you your trim gauge. Well, that trim gauge is activated by the trim sensor. Sometimes that trim sensor gets jammed with salt. And so if it ever says that the trim gauge is in and it's not working, give it a little spray with silicone spray and it will work again. Yamaha, everything is put into the right place and everything is very easy to maintain, and that's one of the benefits of Yamaha. One of the reasons why Yamaha's the biggest seller is because they're actually built to service easy. Yamaha technicians have colour-coded everything yellow that they want you to touch. And in fact, the only thing yellow is how you check the oil here. So you rip the oil out and you have a look. Now, when we fill it at Brisbane Yamaha, we use a calibrated electric oil pump filler that fills it to the exact amount that it's meant to be. Now, it will never use oil. Yamaha never uses oil. But if you did need to fill it, and if it does use oil, I'd want you to bring it back. You fill it around the corner. The next thing, there are 3 yellow fuses at the front. Have a look here. Now, you might never get to use these fuses, but I'll tell you what they're for. What will happen if you do a fuse, and there is a spare fuse inside each of these, it will be because you've been a good Samaritan and jump-started another boat and put them on the wrong polarity, or you've played around with a battery isolation switch. All of the boats that we use at Brisbane Yamaha have a battery isolation switch, which is here. It's got right there. And what the beauty of a battery isolation switch is, it just eliminates any chance of having a short or a leakage of power. We don't want a flat battery, but of course we could start one of these with a flat battery. What we don't want is a current running through boats. Paint electrolysis can be sped up by electricity running through your boat. That's one of the main reasons. Plus flat batteries and going places, just not what we want. So anytime you're not using your boat, turn your battery isolation switch off. And when you're running, you never ever turn your battery isolation switch as you're running. Now, for people that have dual batteries, what do you do there? Well, you drive it on 2 batteries. When you get to somewhere, turn it to battery 1, test it on the Yamaha gauge, because the Yamaha gauge will tell you how many volts, 12.7 you should have, and then turn it to battery 2, check battery 2 for 12.2, run battery 2 out in the morning or whenever you want, put it back to both, start the motor straight away, and that will charge both. Back to your motor. So underneath here, as mentioned, Yamaha, colour code, what they want you to touch. Checking the oil, filling the oil, and fuses. Now, how do you know, back to the fuse, how do you know if you've burnt a fuse out? Because it won't start, but the gauges are on. Or it'll start, the gauges are on, but there's no trim. Or the gauges don't work, but the trim works and it'll start. So basically there's 3 fuses there that do different things, and there is a spare fuse within. Now probably you'll never use that, but just in case something happens. Now let's say you got that flat battery and you needed to lift this motor. Round here, Dan. This hole here, so come round here, Dan. This hole here, got straight in there with a flat blade screwdriver. You turn that and it releases your hydraulics and you could lift your motor up. And then we would have to put it on a chock, or we would use one of the Yamaha supports to look after that. But in the rare occurrence you get a flat battery, that's how you can go through the hydraulic bypass. Yep, might never use that either. Now, flat battery. All Yamaha outboards come with a pull start. 10mm socket, which you'd undo this bolt, this cover comes off, and it's got like a little flywheel in there, like off your old lawnmower. Wrap the rope around it, turn the key on, pull it, and it'll start very easily. I suppose the secret is don't get a flat battery. And if you use a battery isolation, you won't. Now, underneath here, as mentioned, we've come back from fishing. What do we do under here? A light mist with Yamaha Silicone spray. That is the only thing that's recommended. Some sprays and protectives cause rubber to harden and cause damage to engines over time. So the only thing Yamaha recommends is a silicone spray, a light mist, because everything that looks like it will rust. And I've seen engines that are 3 months old and starting to rust, and I've seen them 20 years old and they look like this little beauty. So, come back every few times you go fishing, and particularly if you've had a big day and you've got water in it, because you can hose this out. Saying that, this is a starter motor. Starter motors don't mind a little bit of water, but they hate oil up in the bushes. So never squirt oil up in the top. There is a belt that runs around the top. It is a tooth belt. You won't hurt it. You don't have to do anything with it. It's not a service item until 1,000 hours, which is a long time. For more than what most outboards last, in fact. But a light mist with silicone spray, that's it. Now, what else is under here? You've got oil filters, fuel filters. Everything is down. We've got 10 micron fuel filter on it to protect it before it gets to this fuel. Under here, there's actually nothing else you can do. A light mist, and it's never gonna break down. You never need to touch it with something. Brisbane Yamaha is unique in that we offer extended warranty. So, 2 years warranty on a Yamaha 4-stroke if you service it yourself, 4 years if you take it to a Yamaha dealer, or unique to Brisbane Yamaha, 6 years if you bring it to me. 6 years or 600 hours. Light mist, guaranteed resale value. Outside of that, there is nothing you need to touch, and really no reason to lift your cow. Now, cows are about $2 grand. They don't float very well. If you drop it in the ocean, I'd dive for it. After you've washed it, is give it a little tiny squirt on that ram. Now that ram, you will probably put this boat at the same place all the time, and that ram, just a little tiny squirt with the silicone spray, all done. While we're looking at that ram, I might as well show you a Yamaha Option. Now, what this does is it takes the pressure off the hydraulics. You simply put it on and drop the motor. What that's doing is taking it off, bouncing along. Now we're going to talk about how to run it in. So, the first time we take it to the water, and let's assume you haven't had any boating, right? The run-in, there is a 10-hour run-in required with a Yamaha 4-stroke. Now this run-in is the same whether you buy a 2.5 horsepower or a 350 horsepower. It is the same what you need to do for it. Now, with the run-in, what we're actually doing is bedding in the rings, and we are lapping all of the components that touch in the gearbox. So, regarding the lapping all the surface and different metal bits that touch and gears and things, what needs to happen is time as they work, and there's oil that goes over them. In regard to bedding in the rings is better if it's under load. Now, what load means is if you're on a push bike and you're riding uphill, you had to pedal. If you're on a push bike going downhill, you could just pedal, move your legs, and it's not actually driving anything. That's the load. So at all times when you're running in an outboard, it needs to be under load. Now, what the manual will say is, for 2 hours, we want you to warm it up straight away. So warm it up. How do we know the motor's warmed up? You get down. I don't want you to take it out on a busy Saturday morning when there's 3,000 people there. Go down at a bit of quiet, put it in either at the pontoon or on the trailer, start the motor. Now, because it's fuel injected, you don't need to pump it up, you won't need to do anything. All 460s have an underfloor tank. You can run 95, right? It'll run perfectly on 95. It actually won't run any better on premium. Feel free to run premium. It won't run that much worse on some sort of E10, right? Yamahas are rated for it, but they don't want you to use it. If you go to somewhere and you can only get E10, feel free to use it. Just don't leave it in your tank for extended times because it's hydroscopic, meaning that it's looking for water. And that's really why we don't have it. And some fuel lines, but Quintrex and Yamaha, all their fuel lines, everything's rated to ethanol, right? But we don't want you to use it. Just 95, which is the middle one on the tank. Fill it up. You're never going to have to prime it again. Turn the key and it's just going to start straight away. And if it doesn't, plug the lanyard in and then it'll start straight away. And that's why you bought a Yamaha. Okay, the run-in. We take it there, it's on the boat or it's at the pontoon. We start the key, we warm it up. How do we know it's warm? It's going to take a couple of minutes, but it'll seem like half an hour if someone's waiting, and warm water comes out of the telltale. Perfect. Now for the first hour, we want you to go less than 2,000 revs. On, but under load. Definitely not trawling, definitely not just floating around. Okay. The second hour, we want you to go on the plane. So what we do is you give it plenty, get up on the plane, back it back. At all times during the first hour and the second hour, no more than 5 minutes on anything, any rev range. We're using the rev range. Now, lots of people will tell you that it's all about load. Race car engines are just put on a dyno and just flogged because it's about the load, it's about revving and getting everything going. Cars, a lot of people have a story, they just get a car and drive it hard and then they know it all works. The worst possible thing you can ever do is baby this and idle round, okay? Don't kill it with kindness. The only time I've ever seen a problem with a Yamaha is when a gentleman got it and he hardly used it, he hardly revved it, and it took us ages to get the bed, it smoked and used oil. And it was because he didn't drive it properly. Now, after 2 hours, drive it normally, go flat out, no more than 5 minutes in every rev range, and use it normally. After 3 or 4 hours, trawl and do all those things slow, that's fine. That is what the Yamaha manual will tell you to do, okay? And that's what you should do. Now, if you do that with your motor, your Yamaha, I guarantee you that it's going to work. Anything different to that is just wrong. See you next video.